Step back in time with me for a minute to our dusty, simple little village. The air around here usually just smells of wood smoke and dry earth, and, our lives are pretty much governed by these rigid, ancient routines. But today, in this explainer, I really want to share a story we actually witnessed firsthand. It's an event that completely, absolutely shattered our conventional understanding of logic and the divine. And it's all about a young boy named Adiyo.
Look, for years, we literally thought he was a fool. Just a mad boy talking to the wind. But as it turned out, we were the blind ones. That collective realization right there is kind of the perfect starting point for our journey today. It really sets up the central conflict we watched unfold. The strict, cynical human logic of our village going head-to-head with the absolute, pure faith of an innocent child. We were so sure we had the whole world figured out, Like we knew exactly how a spirituality worked. But man, we were so wrong.
Let me paint a picture of where this whole thing kicked off. Right at the edge of the woods sat our humble ashram, and it was run by this very strict, incredibly traditional guru. Well, one evening, this wandering orphan Punjabi boy named Adiyo shows up at our heavy wooden gates. His clothes are ragged, pockets completely empty, and he seriously possessed zero worldly knowledge, just absolute unblemished innocence. He was literally just looking for a tiny corner to sleep in and a warm fire to sit by.
Now, the real cultural clash started over the custom of Ekadashi. Since you're likely familiar, you know it's a strict day of spiritual discipline and fasting. You skip your usual meals to focus entirely on devotion. But little Adiyo, he didn't understand the complex theology behind fasting. He was just a growing boy with a seriously rumbling stomach, and he demanded his daily food anyway, which, as you can imagine, completely frustrated the head of the ashram.
So to finally quiet the complaining kid down, the frustrated guru relented. But he handed him this remarkably tiny amount of food, just half a baser of flour and dal. I mean, that's barely enough to keep a bird alive, let alone a hungry growing boy, right? Talk about an incredible scarcity of resources. And along with these meager rations, the guru gave him some very specific, really sarcastic instructions, honestly just to get the kid out of his hair.
The guru tells Adiyo to go way out into the deep forest to cook his food, but then he adds a catch. He says, once you cook it, you can't just eat it. You have to close your eyes tightly and invite my Thakur, my lord, to come and eat first. The guru was being totally dismissive, basically just reciting a rigid, symbolic ritual. But Adiyo didn't know what a metaphor was. He took the guru entirely literally. He actually marched deep into the forest, gathered his wood, cooked his tiny half-seer of food, and squeezed his eyes tightly shut.
Sitting all alone out there in the wild brush, Adiyo calls out, "Guru's Thakur, please come and eat. My eyes are closed." The kid possessed this absolute, unwavering trust. He just sat there in the dirt, genuinely waiting for the divine to physically show up to his humble little picnic. No hesitation. Not a single shred of doubt. He just waited.
And guys, this is where the miracles start to escalate super quickly. On that very first Ekadashi, the deities Ram and Sita actually appeared and ate his tiny meal. Adiyo opens his eyes, sees the empty pots, and walks back to the ashram completely starving. By the next Ekadashi, he demands a little bit more food, but this time Ram and Sita brought Ram's brother, Lakshman. And again, they ate the whole thing. By the third Ekadashi, the monkey god Hanuman joins the feast. As villagers, we were in utter shock watching this kid return starving every few weeks, complaining that his guru's guests were literally eating him out of house and home.
So there was this massive, tragic divide between what we were seeing and what Adiyo was actually experiencing. We cynical villagers would look toward the edge of the forest and just see a starving, delusional boy talking to the trees and going hungry. We mocked him for it. But what Adiyo was experiencing, a majestic, totally mind-bending reality, a literal cosmic feast happening right before his tightly closed eyes. He was out there arguing with deities about portion sizes while we were busy laughing at him.
Honestly, I have to confess how we truly reacted back then. We whispered jokes about him hanging around the communal well. We severely doubted his sanity. We completely dismissed his quote-unquote invisible friends. And really, we felt nothing but pity for his rumbling stomach. It really just highlights how incredibly quick we are to judge things that we can't logically see or understand with our own limited senses, doesn't it?
But Adiyo's internal resolve, absolutely unbreakable. By the next fasting cycle, he was just sick and tired of going hungry while the gods ate his tiny meals. So he storms into the ashram and demands a massive upgrade in rations. 7 full seer of flour and vegetables.
He looks at the guru and says, "Your Takura brings his whole family, his brother, his monthly servant. I need 7 seer to feed this ever-growing divine guest list." So with 7 surma of food to prepare, Hanuman himself actually steps in to help cook. And then, Adiyo decides to invite the guru's super talker, the great god Shiva. And let me tell you, the forest absolutely erupted. Shiva, Parvati, Ganesh, Nandi, and this entire chaotic cosmic entourage descended upon the trees. The divine presence became impossibly large. It was way too much for Adiyo's meager cooking pots to handle. The air literally grew thick with majesty.
Realizing he was completely in over his head, he shouts, "There is a whole army of them. I am not opening my eyes until my guru sees this." He literally bound the gods to the spot. He stubbornly refused to let the deities leave, basically locking the creators of the universe in a divine standoff right there in the dirt, demanding that they wait while he ran back to fetch his skeptical guru.
So the frantic boy drags his complaining guru all the way out into the deep forest. And right here, we see this profound spiritual contrast. You've got the guru representing what? Maybe 100 years of strict, empty rituals and lifeless meditation versus Adiyo, standing right there with one single day of pure, uncomplicated trust.
And then, boom, the veil drops. The guru steps into the clearing, and because of the boy's pure vow, his eyes are open to the divine reality. He just falls straight to his knees. He's staring right at the Thakur he had spent a literal lifetime searching for in dusty books and rigid fasting routines. And who actually summoned the divine? Not a scholar, not some great saint, a simple, hungry orphaned boy. It was absolutely the emotional peak of our village's history. It proved, once and for all, that God responds to love and trust, not just mechanical logic.
This event forever changed us. We learned that uncomplicated devotion is always going to win over strict dogma. We realized that purity of heart, that is the greatest offering you can ever make, way better than any perfectly executed ritual. We saw firsthand that literal, childlike trust actually creates a space for miracles to happen. And finally, we learned that physical scarcity, like half a sear of flour, is merely an illusion when your faith is abundant.
So, how can we apply Adiyo's unshakable, pure faith when facing our own modern-day scarcities and anxieties? I mean, we might not be cooking out in a forest, but we all face moments where logic screams at us that we don't have enough. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough strength. The next time you feel that lack creeping in, remember the boy who fed the universe with half a sear of flour. Step out of your rigid logic for just a second. Close your eyes and just trust. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.